All right, this is another one of my recycler finds. I'm actually really excited about this one. It's an older tower of unknown make, but you can see this thing is just enormous. So we're going to open this up and see what we find inside. So on the back here, you can see we've got a video card, looks like an audio card, and a serial card. Got just the DIN connector for the keyboard on the back, so you know right away this is an old setup. This is a networking card with some dip switches, which I think is really interesting. I'd be interested to see what that function was. All I know about this is it's an EDP Computer Systems serial number 2026. We've got an older 110 volt power supply on the back. And interestingly enough, it looks like it has an output as well. For me, that's unusual. So if anybody knows more about this type of make, I'd be happy to hear about it. But you see, we've got lots of room for expansion if we ever have, I assume, riser cards or something, probably for an array. But at this point, I'm just excited to see what we've got in here and what we're working with. So we've got the old style case free here. And if you haven't worked on a system this old, this is pretty typical of the era, where it's a complete wraparound aluminum panel case with your chassis in the center. This one's interesting. It only had a couple screws, but they're all just like, you know, drywall screws and stuff. Somebody's definitely been in here doing some work or some kind of editing to this system at some point, but I just thought that was really interesting. I also think it's kind of unusual that the DIN connector here doesn't really line up well with the back of the case, so not sure if maybe this tower was used for something else, maybe industrial, and then somebody built a PC out of it. Tough to say, but just interesting. All right, so we are taking a look again at this is an unknown make, as far as I can tell, and we've got a whole bunch of disconnected components. Looks like all the switches have been pulled off the board, so to get this running, I'm going to have to put the switch connectors back. But we've got an Intel i486DX2, and it looks like that's a 66 megahertz, if I'm not mistaken, a 1989 chip. And this board has dual processor capabilities. That's pretty darn cool, I have to say. Interestingly enough, this network card is just kind of jimmied in here. I don't know if this was ever even functional the way this is set up, but it's very interesting. And then below here, we've got our display adapter, it looks like. And that appears to be, I don't know, a Trident? Not exactly sure. Looks like it's got its own independent RAM, and it's an IDE card of some kind. Interesting. If anybody's seen a setup like this, I'm not sure. I'll probably have to pull it out when I clean this, but just interesting. And here's the case lock key. I don't even know if I found the lock on this, but that's kind of cool. And then, of course, our sound card here, which is pretty exciting to see, is a Soundblaster 16. That's pretty darn cool, and I can see that that is ribbon cabled right into our CD drive, and it does look like there's an audio connector that runs also to the CD drive, so that's pretty cool. I do see we've got what appears to be two hard drives. We've got the large floppy drive and the standard drive with some sort of an adapter connector. And of course the CD drive on top, it's a Sony CD drive from '94. And then we've got this large switching power supply. 230 watt output is a lot of juice for the era that this appears to be. But the chipset here is really interesting. We've got a Symphony chip, an AMI chip, American Megatrends chip. I mean, I'm not really familiar with this architecture or this chipset. Symphony chipset. Oh, this appears to be some kind of a media center build. Now, I'm no expert. I'm fairly casual when it comes to stuff of this era. But interestingly enough, this board is made in the USA. I'm just flabbergasted. I've never seen this kind of system before. Drop me a comment if you've seen this. I want to try and get this running because it does have a hard drive. So as far as I can tell, everything looks like it would be bootable. And it does look actually like some of the switches work or are connected to the board to work. There's an independent clock battery, which to me is just kind of bizarre. I've never seen that, but I do notice there's no BIOS battery or anything on here. So I assume that that's probably going to be required to run this board. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Again, this is before my era, so if you've seen a system like this or seen this setup before, I'd be really interested to hear what it might take to get this running. I do see we've got some, looks like sim RAM bays. I'm gonna guess, I mean, it's fully loaded, so it's probably got quite a bit of RAM for the era. And then I think these are ROM chips, but I don't know if that's maybe onboard RAM too. Interestingly enough, the socket connectors have extra pin ports, but they're not completely filled with the chips that are in there. So just interesting system. I do have another Intel DX processor, and I'm not sure if that would be something I could throw in this extra, processor port here and just see if it runs. There's no heatsink. There's almost no ventilation in this case, so this thing must just run hot. And it doesn't look like there were fan bays here. This looks like it's some kind of a mount port for card stabilization. I'm assuming should line up with the old VESA connectors here, but I'm just really stoked about this system. It's older than anything I've ever gotten to play with before, so that to me is really exciting. I'd love to see if this will boot, just because it's got what appears to be all of the original system components. I do have a DIN connector keyboard, so in the future, when I get this cleaned up and make sure it's safe to plug in, I'd be really interested to see what this thing can do. So if you're into old stuff like this, I do have a few new things that I just got from the recycler. I've got some more modern stuff as well that I'm going to be going through. We're going to be making a lot more videos coming up. I do have a bunch of fun TRS-80 stuff coming too. Hit that subscribe button, that notification button, and the like button if you don't mind. Stay up to date with me. Let all of your techie friends know. And if you get a chance, head over to the Digital Escape podcast page. That is the podcast I, Urza Master, am part of. We have a new episode that just came out today. Should be up to YouTube here shortly. And would love to get a follow and a subscription over there for you so you can stay up to date with all the goings on outside of technology that I run through as well. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you soon.